Hello, friends. Happy almost New Year. Today, I want to make this video about an epiphany that I got last night. Kind of in the middle of the night, I had a bunch of dots connecting. It's called the magic of three. And we'll see how it goes. This is, this is my notebook from middle of the night. Dot connecting. And essentially, it's about patterns of relationship that I've noticed seem to, at least in for me, patterns of relationship that either make us feel really connected and supported and joyful, or make us feel stuck, or make us feel like confused and overwhelmed. And this way of differentiating and between those, and so to give us a framework to then be able to find those patterns and move from one to another if we find ourselves in one of those less helpful places. So kind of brings together a lot of different things, including the book Finite and Infinite Games. That's definitely a reference that was hitting me in the middle of the night. So the first thing is I was thinking about this threes, how many threes there are everywhere, right? In myths, the three wishes, beginning, middle, and end of a story, an atom, right? Like neutron, proton, electron, spiritual traditions. There's a lot of three. The tripod, the strongest, the triangle, the strongest base of support has a three. I was also wondering, I want to look into stem cell embryology, and I'm like, is there that there too, the way, cells begin and then they become differentiated, and then another level of that. Anyway, so there's a lot of these threes everywhere, and so I'm curious about that, and so I want to distinguish between these three different maybe lenses or ways of experiencing life, and I've experienced, kind of lived from all of them, and some are less fun, less enjoyable. So the first one is just undifferentiated experience. So let's say that's one. So one, undifferentiated. And it kind of looks like, right? It's just like there's phenomena, and I'm sensing things, I'm thinking things, I'm feeling things, I'm doing things, but there's no organization to it. It doesn't have a shape. It's, chaos would be the experience. And my sense of living from that place is, my belief is that it's pretty close. It maybe is close to what it's like from whence we came, so to speak, not being incarnate in a body where everything is everything. And so there's something really maybe fundamentally true about that. And it has no shape. And so I think of it as the non-game. There's no game. You're not a player in a game at all. There is no game. And you may not be having very much fun. So my experience in this place was kind of like there's a lot of merging with the environment, inability to differentiate myself from the environment or really see differences between things. So just call it no game. No game. This came to me in the middle of the night, so we'll see how much this makes sense to anybody else in the world. So that's one. No game. The other thing around that is, it's emerging. The self is lost to the environment, merging with space. And so there can be a sense of, I am what happens to me, I am what happens around me, and no differentiation between an event, happenings, phenomena, and response to that event. At least my experience of that is not feeling any agency, partially because nothing is differentiated. It's just a blur. It's merging, blur. It's like a poem that doesn't land, because it's just like, life is this, right? It doesn't move you because it isn't specific. So merging and blur. So the other thing that leads to, so for me, that was a lot of confusion. It's like there's no maps, there's no structure to anything. Life is very disorienting, living from that place, and and we just kind of everything, we see the sameness in everything. I think people who live from this place or have experienced it, have maybe some kind of skill at seeing the fundamental nature of things, and some of the equivalencies between things, and in blending and in kind of being in more of that spirit realm. So there's that. So there's no shape, chaos. So then we've got two. Binary. So living in the two consciousness, maybe we could call it. So maybe the first one is like one consciousness in a merged kind of way. Two is like a binary consciousness. And so there's more of a closed shape and a rigid shape to it. And what kind of game are we playing in this one? The zero-sum game. That's the zero-sum game. Zero-sum game. So this kind of consciousness is characterized by, it starts with what the first one doesn't have. So it has a little more resource in it, in a sense, a little more energy, life energy in it. It starts with creating a primary boundary. There's me and there's not me. I'll give a quick example of that. I went to an ice cream place the other day, and I tried a little bit of a sample, and it was like a mint chocolate something, and I pulled something out of my mouth, and it was a piece of rubber that was in it. And luckily, I'm like pretty chill about these things, but I wasn't going to eat that. And I said, just so you know, there was a piece of rubber, and the person was horrified. And she gave us the ice cream on the house, which was sweet. And I think she was appreciative that I was like, I'm not somebody that's too fussed by these things, but you should know. because it's a very strong, like, here's an apple, oh, this could be part of me, but a piece of rubber, not, right? So it's important that we actually get that next step, get to the two, which is the binary of this can be part of me, like yum, and yuck, not a part. And so there's separation there. And what else did I write on that? Yeah, so what can start to happen with that consciousness proliferating is good, bad, right, wrong, game, I'll come back to the game piece. So one up, one down, right? Winning and losing. So this is a zero-sum game. So the other one, you're not even a player, there is no game, no rules. And that kind of consciousness feels like it comes from things being really random in a difficult way. And the second kind, so this is like the zero-sum game where, these are the lines of the game. These are the rules. This is what you're supposed to play by. And there's winners and losers, and the outcome of winning is a title, right? And and there's sides in this kind of consciousness, in the two consciousness. And so there's a quality of againstness, and living from the two consciousness, that's just what I'm calling it now, is it's strategic. Strategic living. So when you live from the two consciousness, there's two kinds, two ways of doing that I can identify. Maybe there's more, but that's what kind of came to me off the bat. So there's the way that we think of it more as, which is the more rigid, the more obvious rigid side. I sacrifice the relationship for the self is the idea. Of course, we're all part of everything, so it doesn't really work. But this sense of, the I'm right, you're wrong kind of thing. What other examples I have? Like, the other thing that's like, okay, I have to do this to get that. So the other way that it can come up is what we're a little less familiar with, the more hypo-collapsy kind of side, which is where it comes out a little more indirectly, which is more like, I'll first kind of slide in, make space for somebody to tell me what their needs are, and then maybe I can get mine met in some kind of indirect sort of way. I'm speaking from experience. I didn't know I was doing that, but that was a pattern. So that can also happen with this. There's a kind of strategy, this sense of to get what I need, or what I want, or something. Something else has to be lost in that. Or if I'm gonna be giving to someone else, I have to sacrifice myself. Something for me is going to be lost, sacrificed. So, with the quality of the first one merging, the self is lost to the environment. In the second one, it's against. There's a quality of againstness in some way. Something is against something else. Something is zero-sum. Two options, like neither one of which you really like. Whenever you're thinking in that kind of way, that's like a quality of the two. Another thing with that is, so I talked about the first one, it's like the lens of sameness. It's like everything is the same. The way somebody might talk on a more social level. It's like we're all the same. And the second one might be like the lens of difference, which is sort of a category. And there might be multiple categories, but ultimately still comes down to a kind of two, right? This is above and this is below. The winner and the loser, the one who has and doesn't, and this kind of consciousness, this sort of dividedness inside that then we create and experience and see. So essentially it's like what we're perceiving out there being a reflection of how we're perceiving inside, and vice versa, like this cycle, not like what we're seeing isn't accurate or what we're experiencing isn't like happening in ourselves, but both. Internal division, external, this mirroring quality, I could say, or hologram is probably more accurate. So that's one, that's two. So how about getting beyond, I want to get beyond that, and bring this down. So getting beyond that, the three place. So what did I call this one? I said building block of multiplicity and articulation. That's the key word. So 1, 2, 3. Articulation, multiplicity. Articulation and multiplicity. So with the two, we have like hyper response, and it's in our tissues too, goes more rigid. And on the other side of that is the collapse response. And so we've got this thing in it. I can physically feel it in body work, how they hold each other in place. There's the part that's more hypertoned, and there's a part that's kind of disappearing. And you see that in relationship, and it's like, oh, if this person gains, then this person loses, and this kind of thing that's part of our experience. And it's a more closed, fixed shape. And so when we're working with body work, it's attempt to help it move from 2 to 3, to where there's articulation. There's more articulation. It's not just rigid or collapsed. It's, there's a way to inhabit myself differently. There's a third option and many more than 3. So the other thing that characterizes this, so with the game metaphor, this is the infinite game, right? This is the game that we never want to end. The rules can change, the players can change. Everything can be part of this game. And whatever is going on with us, it can be included as part of the game. So it's not like this with 2, for example, there's more of a sense of functioning or not functioning. And the way we'd approach that is more like a curing kind of thing, right? Or fixing. I'm not a fan of that orientation. So with the 3, it's more of like more healing, coming from my center to your center and back to my center. And I'm changed by our interaction and you're changed by it. We're both part of it. So it's the infinite game. Infinite game. Yeah, the infinite game. So it's playful. It's playful. So the other thing that categorizes the 2 is characters and roles. That's really big. So the first one, there's not really that. I am everyone, everybody is me kind of thing. Can't distinguish. The second one, it's like, this is my personality. Oh, that went off for a second. Must be talking a while. This is my personality, or this is my role, this is what I do, and it's all very serious, and so yeah, there's a serious quality to it. The game and the role, it's like really believing that you're the winner or the loser, or that's real. Getting caught up in that, and of course there are impacts that are very real to those kinds of games. But yeah, it's the way of kind of approaching it. And so this kind of third consciousness or way of being or experiencing the world, maybe, is it has this more playful quality. And what else did I write about it? Yeah, the characters, the personas, the roles, played with lightly, right? More like, when a kid plays dress up or something, freedom, flexibility, and creativity, and rather than an emphasis on curing and functioning, there's an emphasis on wholeness and acceptance, inclusivity of all. Wholeness. Yeah. What else? Yeah, multiplicity of resource. And so it connects to this sense of, so go back to the articulation. So one way, so that's a lot of there's a lot of concepts there. That's where my brain is at in the middle of the night. So a lot of times, basically what I'm doing with myself or in my role, right, facilitating folks, is to support the movement from, if somebody's at 1, to move to 2, and then from 2 to move to 3. Because if somebody is having completely undifferentiated experience, it's like everything is everything, I merge with the world, then, I mean, you're kind of not incarnate. You're kind of acting as spirit, maybe, but you are incarnate, so you're limited in that way. You don't get the benefit of what can happen being in a shape, in a form. So in the second one, you are aware of the shape, and it has a directional quality, and it has all these characteristics. But if you get stuck there, you're stuck with the characteristics. And so with 3, there's an awareness of the shape and the characteristics, and there's an ability to articulate and to use them fluidly, and I'm moving around because it is that in a completely embodied sense. And one of the ways we can start moving from 2 to 3 is to work with physical articulation of finding the gray, where I'm not rigid, I'm not collapsed, but I'm inhabiting this, and I'm finding there's a little bit of a different quality of movement. What if, my movement's usually rigid? What if I bring, my movement's usually fluid, so what if I bring a little more stability, a little more tone into it? So we find more of the whole range. The range, that's the word. What else with this? So shapes. So you could kind of see the first one, what it looks like. It's a non-shape, and the second one, it's like a closed shape. The third one, I drew it as a closed shape, but that's not really right. It's the 3, but it's more like a spiral. Something like that. A spiral, a wave, all the things that we might think of as choreographies of life. So I think Emily Conrad used to use that phrase. It's this open shape. There's a spiral, there's a wave, there's pulsation. There's both a quality of pattern in it, where there's some kind of repetition, but then there's also this open quality where something can shift and turn in a different way. And I'm always interested in what allows us to create the space to alter the course and to change the trajectory of events. And given that the next moment is entirely open, and that when we define the meaning of that moment, it can actually ripple back and impact the meaning of earlier moments, that's a huge impact. So anything that opens us up in that way is of great interest to me. So that was my epiphany about the magic of 3. The other thing that went into that, and I'll just share this because it's a really maybe supportive for somebody, was an insight I have around healing, around what really allows something to be healing for me, in my experience, is the 3. Is that there's this, and the 3 is also the win-win-win. It's not just like I'm doing something for me or I'm trying to help you or something, but it's like I'm supporting you, and this is relational, and that's also changing me, and also I'm seeing the ripple effect of you and the impact on what you're up to. And so there's a third. So there's that. But let me go back to the healing piece, which is present self embracing past self, present resource self, embracing past self, like younger part, let's say, while held in connection, feeling connected to a bigger space. For me, that allows for things to transform. That's 3. That's why I, sometimes say, lay and feel a tree at your back or something, right? There's some quality of something else holding, as well as you and another person, or you connecting with another aspect of yourself. Could also be essence embracing your ego and feeling connected to the bigger context, either others who have felt that way before, or the bigger essence, spirit, the earth, whatever it might be. So this quality of 3, that there is an experiencer consciousness, the one that's really experiencing the contraction, the pain. Then there's some kind of observer consciousness, compassionate witness. And it could be yourself, it could be someone else, if that isn't developed or there right then for you. And then there's a third. There's the compassionate witness being in connection with something, a bigger resource, the third. So it's like this again, experiencer, observer, compassionate observer, could draw that as a heart actually. And then the bigger, connected to the bigger context. Sort of looks like an eye. Yeah, that's it. Hopefully that makes some sense to someone else, and is helpful and enjoyed. So, more musings for next time. Take care. Have a good New Year's. That's what's coming up. Bye, friends.